our vision is, well, how do we leverage the people we have in our office that are $45 an hour to do things that only a $45 an hour person can do, which is the stuff we're talking about. And how do we create and leverage all the advancements in technology to handle all the other stuff? And all the other stuff is things that you probably don't even think is possible to not have to worry about anymore. And we can dive into some of those, but it's really not replacing your staff, but it's doing things you don't want to do anyway and handling the things that your staff doesn't want to do anyway.
Hello and welcome to the Remarkable CEO Podcast, a show dedicated to chiropractors who want to transform their job into a business so that they can have a remarkable practice as part of a remarkable life, not instead of one. With your hosts, Dr. Pete Camiolo and Dr. Stephen Franson.
Welcome to another episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast, Chiropractic's #1 business podcast. I'm Dr. Pete Camiolo, and today I'm here with a special guest and a remarkable CEO, Dr. Eric Kowalke. Dr. Eric, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
So we are going to bring back the style of practice that we both loved showing up to. We're going to be talking about how to break the guessing game when it comes to how do we get back to our first love, that chiropractic love. I know so many of you who listen to us regularly you've heard Dr. Eric. He's been a guest on this podcast for multiple times over the last few years. I would say you and maybe one of our other guests are competing for the most appearances on this podcast. So you guys are neck and neck. So we love having both you. Dr. Nick Severi is the other guy who we have had on regularly. And, we're honored to have you, Dr. Eric, today. And I'm honored to be in this conversation. Before we ever record, as many of you, Francis and I always talk about, we always have a chat beforehand. We say, hey, what's on your heart? What do you want to talk about? Because there are things that are on Dr. Eric's heart that many of you need to hear. And we were just chatting before, and I love talking to this man. But what he is working on right now is answering the question, how can I bring the latest and the best of what's going on in the technology world and the engineering space into the chiropractic profession? Dr. Eric, you are a bridge. And I love that. I love the bridge analogy because I think about faith. One of my favorite pictures is like your before and after story of your faith. And there's a cross. I don't know if you've ever seen that image, but it's a pretty common image. And I think about that, God's role in our story in, our before and after. Before salvation, after. And I know you and I, we share our faith and Franson as well. And that's a really important thing for all of us. And I love that you said that to me. And I literally had a picture of you almost like arms stretched out, like forming a bridge to say, how can I help more chiropractic people get chiropractic care? And how can I help chiropractors meet these people? And just like this bridge where people converge. So I just had that image when you said before we started recording that you function like a bridge. And I just wanted to say thank you in advance for being a bridge, for the great work you've already done, and the ways that you've given more doctors access to the people and people more access to the clinics. And man, I'm excited. I believe we're just coming into our best chapter in chiropractic. I hope you believe that as well as you're listening. I know, Dr. Eric, you and I do. So, man, before we get into it, I think it's important that people know you a little bit. This is just a great opportunity for you just to share a little bit of your heart, who you are, a little about you, your family, your business, is what you're up to. And then we're going to get into some good conversation today about technology in the future. So, Dr. Eric.
I love it. The hardest part about this one is going to be forcing ourselves to stop talking about this. But yeah, if you haven't met me before, I have a lovely wife, Shannon, who's beautiful, and hence why we have 6 children, ages 6 to 17, almost 18. And I think that's going to be all of them, but we'll see. We have 3 boys, 3 girls. My son's just about to take off to college here, which is crazy. But in 2011, I graduated as a chiropractor. I used to be an engineer, long story, became a chiropractor, opened an office in 2011. We grew really fast to 1,000 visits a week in 3 years and scaled that practice to where now we have 2 locations, an adjusting only location seeing 450, 500 a week, and a main location seeing 1,000 to 1,200 a week. And we have 4 doctors and an operations director. Jason, my brother-in-law, runs the show. And I get to sit in a remote CEO position in that right now, which is really cool, and help make high level decisions on expansion and scaling the business and everything else. So that business is still running. And in 2016-ish, we started SKED software company because we saw a need to create a better experience and a more convenient experience for our patients through scheduling, as well as save ourselves time in the office from answering the phone. And this is interesting, Dr. Pete, now that this is still so related to that, what I want to talk about today. But the problem we had back then was our front desk CA was on the phone, and we wanted them to interact with the people across the front desk. If somebody comes and goes and they don't get to talk to you because you're on the phone, that's a problem. And nobody else can talk to them when they're in the office other than you and me when you only have like a couple of you. And so I was like, get off the phone. So SKED helped us get them off the phone because it moved everything to an app where they could reschedule appointments, and it integrated with the EHR, and that freed them up from being on the phone so much. So that company grew. We grew to over 1,000 clinics, half a million patients every month scheduling and using the SKED patient app, which was really cool. We created a bunch of automations in that software to just free up our staff and our team and allow us to leverage the people we had in the office and just serve more people at a higher level, which is part of the reason why we can see so many people that we do. And then last year in July, we merged with ChiroHD as an EHR partner. So what that created was an opportunity for us to have access to more data and better operationally creating an integration at a level that we previously weren't able to do even more. And so we're doing a lot of really cool stuff. But from a technology standpoint, this opens up a whole new world. We almost have 100 team members on this team now. And we have some incredible people that are learning in the cutting edge of AI technology and AI engineering and AI infrastructure in teams. And we just have really high level people. So I get to work with them on a daily basis while still seeing how our chiropractic office runs at 1,500 a week in 2 locations with multi-doctors, and help bridge that on like, okay, these are problems we're seeing in the office in 2026. We need to build this into software and technology to solve this for us. And here's what we can do with software and technology. Man, maybe we could solve a problem in the chiropractic side that we didn't even know was a problem. We didn't even know this was possible before. And so it's in this really cool space of, I think, using all the advancements in technology and capabilities of AI while having the insight into a chiropractic office and bringing that to our profession. I think I succeed if chiropractic as a profession can be leading the way in healthcare and technology across all worldwide healthcare. If we can do that as a majority profession, then I've succeeded in the next 5 to 10 years.
It's great. Again, going back to the genesis of your story, if some people didn't know you before, starting with an engineering background, then going into chiropractic, and then solving your own problems, in higher health. And that's where you created SKED as a solution for a problem you had. And I don't know if you guys heard the problem, but the problem was his team was not eyes up on the people. And I don't know if that's something that's going on in your offices, but I can tell you something right now. When he just said, if that's not happening in your offices, that's inhibiting you from growing. It's one of the reasons why you're not converting, retaining people, is because your team isn't keeping the main thing, which for us in our work is serving the person that's in front of me in this moment. Knowing your high volume, one of the things people ask me, because I also had my experience in a high volume chiropractic environment, people would come and they would ask, how do you do it? And the thing that was the most important thing that I said is, when I'm with someone, I'm 100% present with that person. And I've created an environment here in this office that protects that honors that. There's a sacred space for a sacred moment at every encounter in your office. It's not just the adjuster and the adjustment. It's every interaction is a sacred space for a sacred moment. And if you have that mindset, you'll see growth in your office, just even from this, listening to this podcast right now. Just be attentive to where your team is at during a shift right now. And what SKED has done, what you did with that in 2016, and now it's, like you said, over 1,000 clinics and lots of folks being cared for. But today in 2026, the biggest problem, Dr. Eric, that I'm also seeing is people are distracted. And that includes us and our staff. What are we doing where are you distracted right now in your business? I just felt like I had to have this moment, Dr. Eric, to say this.
Yeah.
Because you're going to come in right now. We're going to talk about some solutions, some things, but I'll tell you, that's not an excuse to not be focused. It's not an excuse to take your eye off the ball. The ball is the person that God put in front of you, the people you've been called to serve. They're that now. And that's the greatest gift we give people is our attention, our presence in the moment when we're with them. That's the same for me with my wife. It's the same for me when I'm with my kids. Same for me when I'm with you right now. Nothing else. It's you. It's me and Eric right now. Like, this is our moment. I don't know when the next time we're going to have a moment like this. So I'm here. And so can you talk a little bit about that? Just like your heart about, because I think that's actually deep down what you care about and why you believe that technology, searching for better solutions, whether we lead the charge or whatever in chiropractic in the health space, that's great. I think we are all these doctors are coming to discover like the truth of what we know about like the neurology and the spine and the nervous system. Like medicine's going to come around. It's like, whoa, they're getting their eyes behind her. Like, wait, what's that?
Yeah.
So I agree. But can you talk about that sanctity of the relationship side, how important what we do is, and then how technology, I know I'm throwing this at you, but I just want to see where you go with it. Cause that moved me when you said it. I was like, man, that rattled my heart in a good way. And I was like, you know what? You said that's so important for us as CEOs, leading the people and putting them in an environment where we can be successful and our patients can have the greatest level of success.
Yeah. And I think, if you're listening to this podcast, you know Dr. Pete very well. And you obviously know his history and his level of expertise running a clinic. If you took your office and Dr. Pete flew in on a Sunday night and he showed up there Monday morning, he just sat in your waiting room and watched, would you be excited for him to see how that office is running? Would you be nervous? What's the one thing that would stand out that right now in your mind, if you're picturing him sitting in your waiting room, you're like, I know he's going to point this out. I think that one thing, you already know that's a problem probably, and you're just putting up with it because it's probably hard to fix it or whatever. And it's probably your front desk CA, either too busy, distracted. Sometimes they're not even there. They're behind in a back office doing something, or they're also the only person that can take x-rays. So there's a period of time where people come in, there's nobody there. And there's just nothing that replaces that. I mean, I think every high volume or successful practice, even if you're not high volume, I would bet most of you say it feels like a family. Like you just know these people. They're people that you wake up at 3:00 in the morning and you're like, where the heck is Larry? I haven't seen Larry in 10 days. And I was seeing him every other day and you're like looking him up, trying to figure out where the heck Larry is. That's just how chiropractors work. That's what makes us unique. We actually care about people. We make first, day one calls or first adjustment calls. Like the first time you saw them, you're calling and asking, how was their experience or how are they doing after the first adjustment? Like just things that we do naturally and intentionally to serve people. You need your team, the whole team, to be doing that too. And I would say every year, the amount of extra stuff that you're supposed to do to run a chiropractic office only gets more. But most chiropractors are stuck in this like weird hamster wheel where they know they need to hire. Well, right now, the only solution is hire more people to help with all the stuff that you have to do. But you can't afford that. So then you also can't grow because you don't have people to do all the stuff. So you're like, I need to hire somebody to grow, but I can't afford to hire anybody. And I can't afford to grow. And you're like stuck in this weird scenario. And I think my vision, what I see happening, and it's going to happen, is instead of hiring more people, you can just leverage technology to get more stuff done and not have to worry about it. And then when Dr. Pete's sitting in your waiting room watching what's happening, you have this bubbly, extroverted person at your front desk that's sharing the handout of the day and promoting the next big thing you got going on and hugging people and praying for people and crying with people. And like, that's the front desk CEO that you're like, now I know why you run a successful clinic. It's got nothing to do with the doctor. It's this person at the front desk that's just making this whole experience exciting and making everybody that comes into that office feel welcomed and warm, and they look forward to showing up there every day. I guarantee you every successful chiropractic office has that person in the front.
Well, we often say, what's a takeaway from today's episode? I'll say that's one of them is imagine I'll throw it right back. I'll say, what if Dr. Eric airdropped in on a Sunday night and was sitting in your waiting area Monday? What would he say? And I'll say, so that's actually one takeaway from today's meeting already that we're having this conversation is that is something you should do regularly. Audit your business. If you can't have either one of us come down to your office or come out to your office, which might not be in the cards, but you can think about what it is that we would say. Do an inventory. Ask that question in your team meeting next week on Monday. Say, hey, I was listening to the CEO podcast, Dr. Eric, Dr. Pete, and they said if they did this, they came down, what would they say? What's the one thing? And I'm going to encourage you to say, what's the one thing? Give all of your staff an assignment to write down the one thing, not right away. Maybe have them do it immediately, but then I'll say by Friday, I want everybody to give me just one thing, not 10 things, one thing. What's the one thing they would say that if you could change one thing right away, what would it be? Let your staff sleep on it, and everybody owes it to you by Friday midday. And I want that thing in my inbox. I want that in my Slack. I want that in my Monday or wherever you guys do your messages. That is a to-do right away just from this call from what Dr. Eric said. That's huge. Okay. So thank you, Dr. Eric. So good, man. I knew you said it too. I was like, I knew we were going to have a great time when we so talk to us a little bit about this. So you just said technology is going to be able to help us keep people and loving, giving, serving the people in a more remarkable way. You and I were talking about this before. Tell us the story that you told me about what you were paying your CAs back in the day. When you and Shannon, you guys started the business 2011, take us back and then take us to where things are now. And then let's just use that as a tension point, because it is a problem what you just described. I need to hire, but I can't. Like this whole, I'm caught between a rock and a hard place. Can you talk through just your journey and then specifically what we're seeing with doctors today? And you and I can talk about, the modalities or not, all these different things that are coming into the equation right now.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
So we are a lifetime family wellness office, and in West Michigan, there's a lot of attractive people. So these families are large, 6, 8, 10 people, as part of a family unit. So our CVA is probably the lowest, maybe even in the whole TRP network ecosystem. I don't know if you guys work with Bob. Bob does our CFO stuff, Bob Siegel. And, he asked me, he's like, would you, if they put you on stage, would you share that? I'm like, yeah, I would share it. So they probably wouldn't put me up there. But our CVA is way lower than like the standard. But part of that is because we see families and and we can run a profitable business. And so as I was looking at that and I was reviewing that with Bob, and this comes up like all the time, family care plans, how do you make it affordable? How do you make it possible to see families? And, the cost has gone up. Like we've increased our cost of care over the years. But I look back, and this is what we were talking about. 2011, we hired our first CA for $10 an hour. She was $10 an hour with no benefits. I mean, it was like nothing. And now we're 28. Some of our team members are $30 an hour or more with full benefits, with full health benefits, dental, vision, 401k matching, life insurance, accident insurance. I mean, we offer everything now. And if you equate that dollar per hour, we're probably $40, $45 an hour for those employees if they're taking full advantage of all that stuff. That's a 4x, 400% increase from where we were 15 years ago. And is our family care plan for a family of 6 400% more than it was? No. And if it was 400% more, would we see families of 6? Probably not. So then I'm like, okay, well, who's paying for that difference? And that's y'all. That's us as employers, and this isn't just chiropractic. This is like every employer is feeling this. Taxes are more, everything's more. And you're like, well, shoot, I can't run that kind of practice anymore because I can't make any money, blah, 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 blah. So your CVA's got to be closer to $60 a visit or, even more. How do you do that running a family-based practice? I don't think it's very easy. Maybe in some areas of the country, you could charge a family that much, but most areas in our area, I don't think we could serve those people the way that we are now. And unless we added a bunch of stuff. So then you offset that by adding a bunch of modalities, which for some of you, that's in your wheelhouse and that's what you love doing, your passion, and that's your mission. For us, it's not to add a bunch of modalities. I think that would distract from our core vision of what we're trying to do and impacting the nervous system in our community. So our vision is, well, how do we leverage the people we have in our office that are $45 an hour to do things that only a $45 an hour person can do, which is the stuff we're talking about? And how do we create and leverage all the advancements in technology to handle all the other stuff? And all the other stuff is things that you probably don't even think is possible to not have to worry about anymore. And we can dive into some of those, but it's really, not replacing your staff, but it's doing things you don't want to do anyway and handling the things that your staff doesn't want to do anyway. And maybe even in a win-win, like just going back to the phone call example, people don't want to call the office. If a mom on Sunday night finds out her kid has a thing on Monday where they have to go out of town and they're going to be gone and their appointment was at 10 a.m., who's she going to call on Sunday night? She's not calling your office because nobody's going to answer. And the appointment's at 10 a.m. when you open. And so she's like stressing her out because she doesn't want to just no call, no show. Well, that's why we have the SKED app. She can call or she can not call. She can just change the appointment on Sunday. It moves, it opens it up. Somebody else can fill it in. You show up in the 10 a.m. Monday morning. Somebody's there. It's somebody different than you thought, but it all works out. Everybody's happy. So how else can we do that for everything else in the office so that you can scale and grow your clinic without necessarily multiplying your headcount times 2, 3, 4 people?
So you said a couple of things. Number one is, and this goes back to, I'm speaking to you're a CEO as you're listening to Dr. Eric. So one of the things that you're accountable for is you're the visionary. You're accountable to the vision. The vision answers ultimately one question, but it's really 3 ways you could ask the same question, which is, where are you going? Another way I like to ask this is, what does success look like to you? The third way I like to ask this is, what are you committed to accomplish? That's what vision asks that question. It's a loaded question. What Dr. Eric shared with us was his vision for his chiropractic office. And what he feels is a vision that many other chiropractors have, that he speaks with and I speak with. And many chiropractors, maybe you are listening to us as a CEO saying, I totally get the inflation of all the things, and the person that's wearing it is me as an owner. So I'm compromising and I'm going a different route and I'm bringing in things that are a bit of a distraction or isn't part of my vision, but I'm being influenced outside in instead of above down, inside out potentially. And I'm hearing what he's saying. I'm feeling some conviction. So no condemnation here on this call. I just want you guys to hear me what I'm saying. I'm speaking to you as a visionary, saying it is the road less traveled. It's a lonely road. And I want you to hear from a brother who says, man, I feel you guys. I'm feeling it. That's what he said. He said, dude, we feel it. And, he's meeting with his CFO and he's like, and he's making the decision to stay the course because he knows what? His vision, his values, his mission, his premise, his purpose, and his product. And what did he do? He's protecting it and finding ways to solve it. And I think, Dr. Eric, what I love about you is you are finding ways to solve it, not just for yourself, but so many others who share your same vision and conviction that we want to keep it about the nervous system. We want to be able to serve families. We want to be able to do it all profitably and in a way that ultimately honors and enables me to function in integrity as a leader. And that's what all of you are. So I want to say this to all of you who are listening, because I'm not saying, and France and I, we've done many episodes on keeping the main thing, talking about the pivot foot example in basketball. Like you can, when your pivot foot is planted, you can turn, you could twist, you could move the ball, you could pass, you could shoot, you could dribble if you haven't already. And that's all possible if you keep the main thing, which is the foot plants on the principles of chiropractic. We've taught this. And Dr. Eric, we serve many docs who are listening to this that have integrated other modalities in, and that's beautiful. If it's your vision, like you said, if that's in alignment with your definition of success, with your vision. This is going to be, though, an and conversation, which is what you're going to about to talk, because I do want to hear some about the advancements in technology and some of the things that you guys are working on, maybe that are coming down the pipeline that you want us to be aware of, me thinking about as CEOs, because this would apply to both of those camps, right? Like I want to stay a pure chiropractic, nervous system, subluxation based family practice, and the practice that maybe is integrating along the way. So can you speak to that?
Yeah. And I've been in this scenario. This is funny as you thought about that. I bet you all of you as CEOs have had your whole team together and you've done an annual vision casting. And maybe before TRP, your vision casting would be you coming up with all the goals for the next year and then you telling that to your team for the next year. And some of it, let's say you're at 500 a week and you're like, let's get to 750. So you go to the team meeting, the vision cast, you're like, we're going to hit 750. And they're looking around like, this freaking guy is so crazy. Like, who's going to do 750? And who's he going to hire to do that? Because we're spent, And I would bet if you did the capacity tachometer for most of your team members, they all say 105, And so that's the friction as a visionary CEO. You're like, we need to grow. We need to serve more people. Like we're either growing or we're declining. We're either making a bigger impact or less. And it's not fun to make a lesser impact and like decline. Who the heck wants to do that? So we always want to grow. We always want to make a bigger impact, but not every person and most team members, I would say, don't always have that same feeling. And part of that is because we haven't communicated how that's possible, to them. And they're like, I do so much, so I can't do more of everything. Like I do everything right now. I'm doing like insurance super billing and double checking and care plan building and finances and answering the phone and running the front desk and taking x-rays and doing nerve and muscle evaluations and calling people for reactivation campaigns and missed appointments and managing the schedule and building schedules. And I'm doing all this. And we need like 3 more people. And you as a CEO is like, well, we can't hire 3 more people because we don't have the money to hire 3 more people. We need to grow. If we grow to that 750, then we can probably, hire some more people. But you need the people to grow. So it's this battle. So what if you started to think like, okay, what are these people doing that maybe what if they don't have to answer the phone so much? Let's just go back to the core of probably how we're able to run our office the way we're running it. We have over 4,000 appointment changes a month using the SKED app. If those 4,000 appointment changes had to happen over the phone, I don't even know how many people that would be to to service that, but it's a lot. We probably would lose money every month. And that's just from answering the phone. So what if they didn't have to verify any insurance anymore? What if they didn't have to do financial calculations for care plans? What if they didn't have to run reports or try to figure out who to follow up with next? What if they didn't have to run end of day reports and try to figure out who do we have to call tomorrow and what list do I have to give the doctor to do day 1 call, first adjustment calls and day 1 calls tomorrow? What if they didn't have to handle any of that? What if they didn't have to scan any paperwork? They don't have to scan new patient forms in anymore. They don't have to scan reevaluation forms in anymore. There's no more scanning. You just go through the whole list. What are all the things that they do that just consumes their time? And you're like, when we're open, I don't want you scanning paperwork. Like that's the last thing. But at the end of the day, it's got to be done. Somebody's got to do it. And you got to do it accurately and correct. Because if you don't do it right, that one paper gets tossed in the shredder. And then you don't build out their credit card recurring payments. And then they get to a year and you found out that they didn't pay you for the whole year. So it's like all these little things in the office, they are important and they do got to be done. But what if your team members didn't have to do that? And I think as we talked about, Dr. Pete, the solution that we've had for the last few years is we'll hire a virtual assistant because now you just took $40 an hour cost and you reduce it to $10 an hour. But you still have to train that person and you have to hold them accountable. And somebody, we have this whole thing in our office that drives me just bonkers. It's like the double checklist. It's somebody in our office that's going through somebody else's work, double checking that they did it correctly. I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, now we're doing it twice. But it's so important that it can't be wrong that it's worth it to do it twice. But dude, technology is just so much better nowadays. Like the use of AI and things in the office will not only do it better than what we can do it and more consistently than we can do it. They're going to help identify areas that we can grow and improve the business even more. Before we end this, Dr. Pete, I'm going to give you guys a brief snippet into like one thing I created and asked a question. This was just like a few days ago, and I haven't even shared this with anybody, but I think it's just insane. But what are your thoughts on that? Like just what we just talked about with team members and cost and employee costs and getting rid of some of that stuff.
At the end of the day, everything that you listed, I was literally going through in my mind, like phone, and all those reschedules. And then I was going through, insurance verification, the end of day reports, the stats, the care plan creation. I mean, you made a list, you went through a list. I'm like, that's what people do. That's what your staff is doing all day, throughout the day, every day. And it's taking their eyes off of the people. So scanning, you used the word scanning, and it's like, oh my gosh, scan. So all the things, even the one that jumped out to me, which was front desk communications with the doctors about communications they need to have with the patient, like all those little steps. And then the last thing you said, which is huge, we teach the verification process, right? Identify, train, trust, verify, right? ITTV I teach, in the delegation methodology. It's like that V is double work for somebody, it's like, yes, there's obviously value to double checking. I was taught, measure twice, cut once growing up kind of thing. So I get that. But what you're saying right now, man, this is so energizing if I'm listening and I'm putting myself in my own seat, because I'm excited for what it means for the work we do. I'm thrilled for what it's going to mean for my brothers and sisters as well in their clinics. So I am jazzed about all the things that you just noodled on. You just kind of gave us a little exposure into, but man, yeah, absolutely. Let's go. Tell me more. Let's go. Is this possible? 2026? Yeah.
And so this is, and I love speaking to CEOs because you guys, the most valuable thing you have in your entire life is your time. You'll never get your time back. And so I really dislike wasting my time, and you do as well. And if I have to train a team member to do a task, and then I also have to worry about that task being done correctly, and you create checklists and you create double checks, but that's not. And then if she leaves or that person leaves, then I got to train somebody again. I'm like, I already trained somebody to do this once. So what if there is a process or a system that we could scale that I'll never have to train that person how to scan new patient paperwork again? So this is where you guys are dragging your feet, because you're still doing, if you're doing PDF intake paperwork, you're 10 years behind. You're wasting your time. You should never have to scan new patient paperwork. We built an insane tool that's way better. It functions way better. It takes notes way better, and you never have to scan paperwork. You're just continually monitoring. Somebody has to order more paper because you go through so much freaking paper in 2026. Now you're paying somebody to order paper. They're going to leave. You're training somebody else how to do this process, and you're just like spinning your wheels and wasting time. There's a solution for that. Digital paperwork automatically goes. A patient can go on at, what we've seen is 86% of people that schedule in our office schedule outside of our business hours. And they schedule through a new patient portal that we have on our website. And 30% of all new patients that schedule through that portal schedule in the middle of the night, like between midnight and 6 a.m.
Wow.
And these are people that are like probably crisis, like they can't sleep and they have a horrible migraine and they're searching chiropractor near me and they're reading all our Google reviews and they're like, I need to go in there because I can't live one more night like this. And it's 2 a.m. on a Sunday and they schedule on my website and they get texted a link to fill out their paperwork instantly. And they fill out their paperwork and that paperwork is filled out and in our system when we show up at 9:30 in the morning and they're scheduled that morning at like 11 a.m. Because we want to see people the same day or the next day, like within 24 hours, a new patient. We want to have our system good enough that we could serve that person within 24 to 48 hours, today or tomorrow. And so the paperwork allows us to be prepared because now I'm not waiting for them to come in and like hand me paper across the front desk. We can review that as a team and the pre-shift huddle. And we know they're coming in with migraines. They're scheduled at 2 a.m. This is their name. Like, this is what's going on. Here's the best team member to do that day one because you had that same condition or you work best with these people in that scenario. Boom, put it on the list. We're organized. We're going to the shift and we just crush it. Also, her insurance is already submitted and we know that insurance is this. So we know how to properly communicate to her the value. We know what it's going to cost for her to take x-rays today. We know what her deductible is, all of that stuff. Like you're just prepared. Like that should be, I never have to train somebody on how to do that again because we just found a system to scale that. That's what's going to happen with everything in your office. But as a CEO, just start thinking about that. Like, how do I not ever have to do this again and waste my time? And there is systems out there. And if there's not a process and a system to make it better, that's what I'm excited to create.
Man, I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for just sharing that, and for the visionaries just speaking into that, like stimulating the soil of the CEO visionary brain and getting us back, getting excited again, thinking about what's possible, not just the life of possibility versus probability. Like there's a life of possibility for us, and how AI and tech is going to actually support us as chiropractors. Like I'm excited for the next generation of chiropractic. What do we say? We've scratched the surface in the population. The amount of the population that's active under chiropractic care is still less than 20%. I mean, just think about that. The reality is if we could just take another 10% of humanity, even if you just take North America, if we're just talking US, because that's where you and I are, I know we have listeners around the world, but think about if we could just take another 10% of the population, get them under regular chiropractic care, even if we got a certain number of percent in your office to grow. I mean, the possibility and it to be easier to show up, more exciting, a more remarkable experience for your staff, for you, and for the patient. Everybody wins. It's win, win, win. I love this, Dr. Eric. So something you told me is, before we started today, you said the rate of change is fast. So stay plugged in. Do you want to talk a bit about how people can stay plugged in with what you're up to, what you're doing?
Yeah. So that would be my call to action is if you're not on a newsletter with myself or SKED or Chiro HD, and you're not going to the TRP conferences and talking to us at the booth, and we're putting out webinars and content, and you're not actively engaged and trying to figure out what we're creating, we have a beta test group. So if you're already using one of our technologies and you're using SKED or Chiro HD, get involved in the beta test group. It's incredible. Like right now, you can beta test an entire drip campaign series. So if you're using Go High Level, there's like an entire drip campaign series in SKED that functions like Go High Level. You could be beta testing. Alina is a complete AI phone service that's soon to be like running all your patient communication. You can test all this really cool stuff. So if you're into this and you want the latest that's not even released yet, just reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram, Facebook, Dr. Eric, DRERIK at sked.life, sked.life is how you can get a hold of me too. But the conferences is a great way. Like you'll never regret going to the conference. As we grew our practice to 1,000 a week, we were at 4 conferences a year, our entire team back then, like every single one. And I think, looking back on how valuable that was for us, it was for our team members to be immersed in the principle of chiropractic, because it's all of your procedures and your processes and your wordage and the phone answering and day one scripts. It has to come from the heart. So more so, it has to be in them. They have to own the philosophy of chiropractic when they're speaking to a mom and you're not in the room. And some team members, if they didn't grow up in chiropractic, like you gotta foster that for them. And there's no better way to do it than bringing them to a TRP event and just being immersed in that, especially like the beginning of every event that Dr. Pete gets up and shares. That first like half hour or hour is worth the whole conference. It's worth all the expense of bringing your team there. And I know it's expensive. Like, trust me, we bring a team of 15 people flying across the country with hotel rooms. I think it cost me 20 grand to go to a TRP event for our office, but this is why you have to scale the technology in your office. So you have enough profit to be able to take your team to these events to do that. But before we're done, I want to share this little like side project I was working on with our team. Can I share that real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
So I hope more people are excited about this than just me. So we developed an AI chat feature inside of SKED. So if you use SKED, SKED has access to all of the people that have made appointments, arrived for appointments, rescheduled appointments, and canceled appointments. So in my office, we've used it for 10 years. So it's got a lot of data. So this is what I asked it. I said, I think you have access to appointment data, people who have arrived at visits and when. We'd like to focus on retention. We know people who stick to their recommendations get the best results. Typical recommendations are 50 plus visits in 12 months. Look closely at all the data and primarily the people who stop coming. Can you find any patterns in the appointment rhythm with the people that stop coming? And then can we apply that to people that have similar patterns most recently so we can follow up with them? If someone starts missing appointments or doesn't come, we don't really know what's happening. Ask any questions you don't understand or if you have any other suggestions. That was the question I asked. And it analyzed 11,900, this is just for my office, Higher Health, 11,970 patients. 2,654 of those has it identified as churning over the last 10 years. 1,807 active patients. 43 of those 1,807 are high risk, 3 medium risk, and 1,761 low risk. So first I was like, pat on the back, we got 1,761 active low risk patients. There's a family practice for you. So then it said this, it said, it's 11-page report. So I'm just going to read you a couple things, but the fact that we have access, guys, to look at this data. I mean, we used to print reports and then you would highlight, you're like, call Larry, and then highlight this printed page when you call them so we know that you call them. Patients rarely stop coming abruptly. The data shows a characteristic deceleration curve. The time between visits gradually widens before the patient drops off entirely. The charts below compare inter-visit gap trajectories for churn versus retained patients. And then it gives me the list of all 43 that it identifies as high risk based on their appointment frequency and change. And this is, I think, really important too. It says 0.4% of churned patients had a cancellation rate spike over 10% above the baseline, which means cancellations alone have no significance on whether somebody churns care or not. Which isn't that amazing? You would think, well, if they start canceling their appointments, they're probably going to churn. Look at cancellations. It says no. It says cancellations have nothing to do with that. In fact, it says 65% of churn patients had recent visit gaps 2 times or more their established cadence. So the high level, what it tells you is mapping. You know, if you read this with Jason, I'm like, freaking mapping. Like, if you get a map and they have an appointment on the schedule, you're going to reduce a significant amount of churn. And then you leveraging technology. So my goal is like, you know what I did with my team? I said, here's the 43 people. Like, you gotta, this is who we gotta follow up with. This is who we gotta call.
Yes.
So now I gotta just create this same thing for you guys. So you can have this in your own office, you know, stuff like this. You just plug in instead of trying to figure out who do we need to reactivate or who, you know, how do we improve retention and who's about to churn. Like, you don't have to guess at that stuff anymore. What's coming down the pipeline is just gonna help us so much.
Wow. I love that you did that little snapshot into your world. I just love listening to your question. That's the best part is the prompts, right? And how you ask questions. So it was really cool if you guys listened to see the level of detail and specificity that you were able to ask and to be able to gather that kind of intel is just huge. And I love that you've been 10 years of pumping data through for a moment like this in our history in time. What a blessing, man. It's like the hard easy. It's like you did all that. Now it's like, it feels like it's going fast, but it's 10 years coming. It's a long time in coming. So guys, the rate of change is fast, like Dr. Eric said, and so much gold that you shared with all of us today. So man, I'm just so thankful for you, grateful for our brotherhood, our friendship. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your servant hearted leadership and just being on the tip of the spear and helping chiropractic advance and using technology. Like I said at the beginning, you know, you asked the question, how can I, bring the latest and the best into the chiropractic profession? How can I be the bridge to the chiropractic profession? So thank you for that. And I know for all of you who are listening, you got a ton out of today's episode. So remember to tune in every week to the Remarkable CEO podcast. Make sure you get plugged into the events. Make sure you get plugged into tracking what SKED and Chiro HD is up to. Get in one of those betas that Dr. Eric talked about. Reach out to Dr. Eric and his team. And remember to tune in next week for the next episode of the Remarkable CEO podcast. Until then, God bless you all. Have a great rest of your day and your week. Please stick around for more business insights from this week's bonus interview with our remarkable success partner dedicated to helping you more successfully help more people. Enjoy.
We're here with Dan from Twoconnect, one of our fantastic success partners in Australia. Dan, tell us a little bit about the specific problems that Twoconnect solves for chiropractic clinics that are engaging with Twoconnect and using them for their services. What problems do you guys solve as a business?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew, and great to be here. Basically, the problems that we're solving is helping with certain administrative aspects of practices. So that very often can break down into the problems of specifically to with lead conversion and patient life cycle and reactivation. So what we hear a lot as we're talking to chiros is a kind of low level anxiety about, are we following up on leads A, quickly enough, and B, enough times? It might take multiple calls. Do our front of house staff really have the bandwidth to be doing that? So there's a feeling that no, we're probably not. We're leaving revenue on the table there. The other piece as well is about reactivation. So, we've got this big database of people that have come in. Maybe there's people 6, 12, 18 months we haven't heard from. Do we have any real meaningful engagement with them? Probably not so much. So again, there's a problem there with not maximizing that database and not going back and getting conversions, running campaigns. And then probably a third would just be other administrative aspects. So there might be things that can sit behind the scenes that can be done from an offshore perspective, because to be clear, what we're talking about is a dedicated team member working in the Philippines for the practice. And this might be things like X-ray roll-ups, or it might be doing certain aspects of reporting, punching numbers into spreadsheets, right through to, as I say, the more sort of patient-facing roles. So,
So
yeah.
I guess kind of in a nutshell, what you're talking about is finding a labor force outside of the local area. And, I've got a busy practice. I've got numerous CAs, and finding an A player in is difficult. We've had hiring processes where we get 150 to 200 applications, and maybe 3 of them are worth actually pulling into the clinic and having a face-to-face interview. So that can be super frustrating.
Yeah.
So you're talking about finding a specialized labor force outside of your local area, specifically the Philippines.
Yeah.
And so from the sounds of it, you've helped people with their marketing and lead follow-up and lead generation, or taking them from, a prospect into a patient, converting them to a patient.
Yeah.
You've also, the interesting, you mentioned like ruling up X-rays and those kind of little tasks.
Yeah.
You find specialized people that can do that sort of stuff, train them up for what we want to achieve.
Yeah, absolutely. The way that the model works is that we have a chat with the chiro and go, like, what's the role profile? Like, what are you after? What's the need? Where's the pain? And then we go, okay, well, here's a position description. Does that meet that? Any tweaks to this? Any arrangements? And then it's like, yes, let's go forward. And if it's go forward, give us a couple of weeks. We'll come back with 3 to 4 candidates who meet that brief, who have some kind of background. So it might be, say, a medical background, or even if sometimes it can be a more salesy background, for example. And we go, right, here's these 3 to 4 candidates. Which one do you like best? And then maybe we can do some role plays or some scenario based testing to really de-risk it and make sure we've got the right person. And then, yeah, we deploy them. So yeah, it's a pretty simple model. It basically, a lot of it rests on us. It's de-risked because you're not paying anything until that person's actually starting work. And it's also, you're not having to bring on another employer and all of the employment liability with that, because they're employed to our legal entity in the Philippines. We manage all of the HR, the payroll, the holiday management, all of that. And they align to Australian time zones, they align to your national holidays. So all of that heavy lifting is done in the background. You just get that full-time team member. You get to select the one that you want. And we're off and running.
Yeah, that actually sounds like a major problem solver for a lot of particularly busy practices, but even I guess you've probably had scenarios where people who are, solo practitioner or not too many staff have engaged with your services to really help them expand and grow. So for example, for our build docs who are just starting out and just starting to get the clinic rolling, and they need somebody specialized, but they've got a jack of all trades at the front, which is often what happens when you hire your first CA. I guess you guys can add an extra dimension into specializing particular roles reasonably quickly from what.
That is the case. That is the case. Or I will say, I want to be transparent about this. I do understand that often there's a certain point or a certain scale where this starts making more sense. And often that is maybe there is 2 to 3 plus fully loaded chiropractors where you start to go, right, we've got CAs but those CAs are busy and we got admin building up again, are we calling people enough? That's when this model can probably really start to come into play and the ROI starts to come into effect. I just wanted to be clear about that because solo practitioners, often just that single CA might be covering things, and we do provide full-time roles. So that's where that sort of ROI stack up starts to come into play.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of that ROI, what kind of ROI can a CEO expect from investing in engaging with Twoconnect, bringing in somebody offshore, a virtual chiropractic assistant? Have you got a case study or an example?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, we've got multiple case studies, and I guess the underlying maths is that getting one of our virtual CAs or patient support representatives or lead conversion specialists, it's going to cost between 55 and 65% less than hiring someone onshore for that requisite level of skill set. So if you start to think about that and where the ROI, say, for like the Back Doctor or Chiro H3 or some of these businesses that we've worked with, Wellbeing Chiropractic as well, is it's when you're going, right, we've got this full-time resource who's costing half what a normal person would cost. There's no, superannuation or anything like that to worry about. And the call volumes that are being made because they're dedicated to this is usually 6-7-fold. So therefore, we've seen conversion rates, double and triple based on just being able to deploy that cost-effective resource appropriately to that, that conversion funnel, basically. And again, similarly, sometimes there's a split or a hybrid role where they're doing some of that lead conversion stuff, but also they're taking admin away from the CA. So that's where the ROI kicks in. And there's also, I think, critically, a real patient and actual customer satisfaction piece as well. So what I mean is the front of house CAs, the people physically there, are able to, the phone is not ringing as much basically, and they're not having to make as many phone calls, and maybe there's inboxes being taken care of at a certain level as well. Therefore, that's going to translate into a more present patient experience. What that also means is that output is happening from the offshore perspective.
So in terms of, I guess, when we're talking about the direct ROI and we talk about the, cost to acquire a customer,
Yeah.
it's, I guess, a bit of a balancing act, right? Because if we're going to invest in offshore help and we're going to invest in, digital marketing, which is, reasonably expensive for a chiropractic profession, unless you're doing it really right and you've got your ads optimized, all that kind of stuff, but it's still an expense. One thing that I don't like with my digital leads that I've paid to acquire is I don't like them sitting in our CRM waiting for someone to touch them. And we know that there's so much data on this that the faster you call that prospect once they're in your CRM, the higher the likelihood of them actually coming into your practice. And I think it was something like the research was 87% more likely if you call them within the first 5 minutes. Now, I run a busy practice. I know my CAs work hard. Often they just don't have the time resource to do that. So I guess what you're talking about is a protection of the ROI that you're already putting into marketing to, funnel in those leads. And also you mentioned the reactivation campaigns. You're right. We've got a whole bunch of a large database of people that have only stopped coming in because they just kind of lost their way. It's not because they didn't love chiropractic.
Yeah.
Because, they weren't having a great experience. They just kind of got a little bit lost and they slipped through the cracks.
Yeah, or often there's something really small, and we see our clients being smart and doing reactivation campaigns that aren't, hey, you haven't been in for a while, do you want to come back in? It's more you can almost position it as like a feedback gathering kind of survey kind of piece. So you're calling saying, not sure if you recall, but 8-10 months ago you came in, and we're just doing a piece of work to understand what that experience was like. Was there anything, what was that experience for you? And sometimes doing that, somebody can bring up that thing, whatever that was that barrier that made them come back. And then, of course, what you can do is do work to go, oh, okay, well, if that's the case, and you can overcome that objection and get them back in as well. So it can be a multifaceted. So you're getting feedback from the market about what your patients are feeling, especially the ones who aren't coming back. You can start building that up and go, listen, what I'm hearing is, you can build lists of these are the reasons that people aren't coming back in. Some of them might be known, and you might go, sure, maybe it's money related, or maybe but maybe there's an experience that they're having that you're not aware about. So again, it's that patient care. So yes, quicker to call. Also, the reactivations, getting information from that database and getting conversions from that. But also, you can just perhaps layer in a patient life cycle touch that you never had before, because we've got resource to do it. Wouldn't it be good if, after X point or Y point, they got a call and were asked this specific question, or we're given this specific piece of information, for example. So you can really start to get smart and much more interactive with your client base.
And I think probably the beautiful thing about that, especially in an age of, bots and automated calls and all that kind of stuff, is we're actually talking about speaking to an actual person,
Yeah.
human touch, which is,
Yes.
you know,
And listen, on that point, Andrew, I just want to bring something up, which I think is fair. Sometimes people say, okay, offshore resource, I get it, it's cheaper, sure. But, what is that accent like? What's the English like? And I'd say two things to that. One, this wouldn't be up and running successfully in this space if we weren't talking about people who were great, bubbly, empathetic communicators. The expectation is that they have a very high level. The second piece is that you don't have to take our word for it. The way that the model works is you see the candidates, you make the choice. And if you simply said, well, these candidates aren't, up to scratch from any perspective, but if it was communication perspective, then it's on us to find you some better candidates. I just wanted to take that off the table, because I know that sometimes people go offshore. I've got concerns about, how that's going to come across with our brand. That is something that we take care of, and you are always in control of that.
and you know what? I think it's a bigger problem in people's mind than it actually is in reality. I actually have somebody from the Philippines who's local, who works on my front desk. And nobody bats an eyelid when she rings them and makes a genuine call from the front desk. So they go, oh yeah, she works there.
Exactly right. Yeah.
The more multicultural your workforce is, the less people are stressed about it. Do you know what I mean?
That's what I believe, for sure.
I think we've actually kind of touched on this question, but the next thing I wanted to ask you was, when we consider what's important next in kind of looking at the future trajectory of the chiropractic profession, the way the world is heading, how are you helping chiropractors to prepare to succeed in the future?
Yeah. Look, I think what it is we sit in that critical piece, which is where the remarkable practice sits, which is with chiropractors who are going, how am I looking to build that business machine? Really, that funnel, all of the metrics that sit behind it, CAC to LTV, all of these, critical metrics. As you start moving in that direction, naturally you're measuring those things so that you can improve those phases. You can improve each stage, whether it be conversion, whether it be life cycle, whether it be whatever the case may be. And what offshoring allows is to say, hang on a second, traditionally this phase of what we do, this part of our offering just incurs this amount of cost and this amount of effort in terms of recruiting new people, recruiting CAs to come in. Actually, it turns out that the CAs that we hire, a lot of them, they're good with our people, but they don't really like, getting on the phones. That's a bit of a sort of a have to do and that kind of thing. So it completely changes that equation, and we can come and say, right, let's look at all that overall business. Let's look at that pain and let's look at that cost, and let's fundamentally change that. We can cut that in half or even better. And we can move to a more metrics-based approach where we are using these metrics and getting more metrics input from these people as well, because they have the time to be actually putting in things into spreadsheets or into CRMs and things like that, measuring that, building reports off the back of that. So I'd say the thing is, what we're doing is we're helping chiropractors scale with just dramatically reducing that operating cost from a people perspective, but that kind of bandwidth and those types of roles we're also seeing is helping feed into improved metrics as well. Yeah, those are probably the key points that I'd make. Perhaps a final thing as well is that if there is a point where practices maybe are thinking of growing and there's maybe multiple practices or multiple locations as well, this solution can work really well for that. So we've got one person who can now be working across two locations, three locations, or however many locations that you need. So it's basically a way of helping accelerate growth by driving efficiency, reducing cost, and improving the way that you're working with metrics.
You know, you mentioned that CAC to LTV ratio, right? And we're also talking about protecting that investment that you put into marketing. And if you can optimize your marketing funnel for the same amount of ad spend, then your CAC goes down.
Yeah.
And if we're doing it efficiently, even if we add that expense of, offshore, the CAC still goes down because it's significantly more optimized and perhaps converting prospects from, I don't know, throw some numbers out, 20, if we can get it to 30 or 40%, the immediate ROI.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I'm sure you've heard this, but we do again hear that anxiety of like, well, I would like to put some more money in the top of the funnel and spend more money on marketing, but I'm not really sure we're going to catch it. Like we're just going to be money in, but that's more calls, and we're already struggling to make those returns. So it does free up and make that growth feel a little bit more possible, a little bit more sustainable. But it's not just the CAC, it's the LTV as well, because if you're able to communicate more regularly at more critical touch points with a patient, and again, get back into those traditional someone who, right, the LTV has come to an end, not if we're doing reactivations in smart ways as well. So it's both ends of that
both ends of the scale. That's the dream.
Yeah.
So I guess what we're really talking about is Twoconnect can come along and they can plug that leaky bucket, plug the hole in that leaky bucket, whether that leaky bucket represents, the marketing funnel and just leads, prospects just dropping out of that funnel because they're not getting called fast enough, or the genuine patient base who people are leaking out of that bucket just because they get lost and there's no reactivation campaign.
Yeah.
So
that's it.
That sounds like a wonderful solution. Now, I've actually got one other question that I'm just going to throw in there. There's a lot of different offshoring kind of agencies. Sometimes people go searching for themselves. You touched on this briefly, but what sets Twoconnect apart from those other agencies and the option of looking for offshore labor?
Yeah, there's a couple of things. I think the DNA of Twoconnect is interesting because it's a family-run business, and the story actually is that the Kukla family who set up the business lived in the Philippines for a long period of time, and the founder and MD actually basically grew up there. So there's a real understanding and connection with the country, with the people, with the culture, and also a deep understanding of the workforce and what it takes to do business over there. So there's kind of a dual mission for Twoconnect, which is, yes, to serve our clients with excellence, but it's also to provide great working opportunities for hardworking Filipinos and their families as well. So, for example, we have private health insurances built into the offering. So we've got a really good reputation over there of looking after our people incredibly well. The other piece is that part of our basis and our partnerships over in the Philippines was that it started from a medical background. So we've always understood how to operate in that space, the importance of looking after patients and having how to source those people and look after them really well. So those are probably the key points. And quite frankly, now I think that Twoconnect has more chiropractic clients than frankly anyone else. So we've carved out a niche, and we've got to work with the remarkable practice and really spend some time understanding how chiropractors work and what the drivers and needs are.
Yeah, and look, we're a unique profession and our needs and focuses are completely different, and having somebody who understands, you're already talking about cost to acquire a customer versus lifetime value ratios, all that kind of stuff. So it's good to see that we have these success partners that can genuinely fix a problem for our remarkable client practice or our remarkable practice clients, but also that they add value to their community. I remember you talking about, like, you guys even go above and beyond to make sure they get a birthday cake or something for their birthday, and that helps improve
Company policy. Yeah.
employee retention is what we want, right? If we get an A player, we want to hold on to that A player. Sounds like you guys are nailing it.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that after our little conversation, a lot of people listening are like, you know what? This is the solution that I need to help scale my practice further. What's the best way for a listener to learn more or take the next step to get in touch with you?
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So, firstly, I'd say there might be some listening who say, wow, this is definitely something I need. And there might be another demographic who are just saying, there might be something there. And even if it's not now, I'd kind of like to figure out a little bit how it might work, even if it's in 6 to 12 months that this might come into focus more meaningfully. So, more than happy to, I just want to make that clear. I'd be more than happy to speak to absolutely anyone, wherever you're at on that stage, even if it's a 10-15 minute little fact finding mission, and we can throw some pricing around, answer a couple of questions and check in 6-12 months. So completely fine with that. So basically, my name's Dan Anticich. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you go onto the twoconnect.com.au website, you can submit via a form there, and I'll get in touch with you from there. Or, well, yeah, that's pretty much it. The Twoconnect website, go there, get in touch, and I'd love to chat, and we can arrange a time to go through things.
And I'm sure if anyone listening just went, oh, okay, I don't know which one I'm going to do, fail safe is just send a message to somebody at the Remarkable Practice, and we'll put you in touch with Dan.
Absolutely right. Appreciate that.
Thanks for your time today, Dan. And as always, it's a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Remarkable CEO Podcast. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, share with a friend, and leave us a review. And if you'd like to connect with us personally, direct message us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or Instagram. Remember, what the world needs now is chiropractic, and what chiropractic needs now is more successful chiropractors.